This video is going to cover Assignment 2, look at the integrated development environment and how to use it. Go over basically our first time using Visual Studio. It may not be your first, but that's how I'm going to try to approach this video. We're going to do some simple things in a frontend.aspx and then a couple of simple things in the code behind .cs, C#. We'll do a page load function, and we'll also do an event handler for a button click. Just some basic things. Show how to use CSS positioning to allow us to drag and drop things on the screen. If we take a look at our finished product here, there's not a lot to it. We're just going to create again a simple page. This is more about just learning the IDE. When we put some stuff in, and we hit submit, it will the backend will take that information out of those boxes and it will post it into a label, and that's the base functionality that we're looking at here. So we're going to look at doing this first part here. There is an HTML select that we will come and grab after a bit. If you want to go ahead and launch your Visual Studio, mine initially comes up with a box that offers an opportunity to load existing items that I had loaded before in the past. There's an option to continue without code, and that's what I did, continue without code. So I loaded this blank screen here. Some things that you may or may not be aware of. We've got the Solution Explorer. We'll use that quite a bit. Over here, we're not going to use the Server Explorer in this video. The toolbox, which is often over here collapsed maybe, but we can pin it there so that it stays there. Anything that we are using that you do not see on your environment, you can go to View, here's Solution Explorer. You can scroll down to find the toolbox, and also we will use the Properties window as well. So let's start by creating a new project. So we'll do File, New, Project. And this is how you're going to start your projects. You are doing an ASP.NET web application using the .NET framework in C# language. Do not choose this one. They put it at the top. If it says core, do not draw an X. I'll draw an X there. Do not use that one. Scroll down, find the one that says ASP.NET web application .NET framework. Okay, that's the one you want to choose. ASP.NET web application .NET framework. We'll hit next. We're going to call this Assign02. That means it's going to create a folder called Assign02. I'm storing mine on the desktop right now. Store it locally. Don't try and store it on the server and work off the server. You can do this locally for now. So store it locally on your desktop, and then you can copy it over when it's done. So I'm storing mine on my desktop. You can see the solution name is going to match what I put here as the project name, Assign02. This .NET framework, mine defaults to 4.6.2, which is the latest version that would still work on a Windows 8 environment. After that, it goes to Windows 10, which is fine either way. I'm going to leave this default at 4.6.2. The current version is 4.8, so I'm going to leave that for this exercise. I'll hit create. You come to the next page, and I want you to choose empty. So we'll do an empty project. We don't want them to stuff it full of all kinds. They're already gonna create a folder that's several meg. So just choose an empty web application, and the defaults there should be fine for what we're doing, and hit create. So now you can see our general layout here. Over here in our Solution Explorer, if you don't have the Solution Explorer, go to View, Solution Explorer. When it appears, if it's not where you want it to be, maybe it pops up like that. You want to dock it over here somewhere. Once you get in that area, you see that pop up here, and you can you put your cursor over where you want this to be, and I want it to be up here at the top, and then it'll dock it there on the right hand side. So inside of your Solution Explorer, it gives you your project name in bold. Whenever I say to come over and right click on your solution, you're going to be usually right clicking on this bolded item here. Again, we started with an empty one, so let's go ahead and add our first item. Right click on Assign02, add, new item. We're going to add a new web form. We're going to make sure that it's in C#. Down here at the bottom, we're going to name it index.aspx. Once you've done that, hit add. You'll see it appear over here in your Solution Explorer. So here's our index.aspx. You can expand and collapse that. It has an associated .cs or C# code behind file and an associated designer.cs. We will focus on the ASPX and the .cs. The designer is a go-between between these two, and essentially any control that you create in one is going to wind up being listed in this designer. But we are going to focus our attention on the front end and the back end page here. So we've got you can double click on the index.aspx and double click on the .cs, the aspx.cs. You can see the file name here, aspx.cs and the .aspx. I'm going to close this one here. So I've got these two open. We're not going to need this .cs for a little while. I'm going to go ahead and close it so there's not any confusion. We're just working in the .aspx. You will want the toolbox. If your toolbox does not display, go to View, choose Toolbox. Again, if it pops out here and it is like this and you want to dock it somewhere, take it to the area you want to dock it, find that spot like that, and then this right here will auto hide it or not if you don't want it auto hidden, and then you can adjust the size accordingly. We are also going to need the output window, so we'll do View and Output right here. So there's our output window. When we do a save in Visual Studio, we hold down Control, hold down Shift, and hit the letter B. And in the output window down here, you'll see build started, build succeeded, 0 failed. That's what you want to see each time. So each time we save, we're doing a Control-Shift-B for build, Control-Shift-B. And that's going to save your files for you. So to start, we're going to work with the toolbox, work with some CSS positioning, and create that area that we're going to work with. Down here we've got we can go completely to design, or we can split the window between source and design. Let's go ahead and split it. I know that's kind of separating our screen out here even more, but that's all right. This div, we're going to give an ID of container. And then we'll put some space inside of that. Everything else that we add to this page is going to go inside of this div. So it's going to be open body, here's closed body, open form, here's closed form. That's your web form. Everything should have an ID. And most things that you put in here are going to have this run at equals server. that means that that control executes on the server before it gets to the client in the web browser. So in this container, I want to, right now it's just this single line div, and what I would like to do is add some style to it to make it that light blue rectangle that we had. So I'll do the style element, type is equal to text CSS. It automatically closes it for me. I'm going to do pound container with an open and close, and we're going to set the background color. I'm going to use a light blue. I also want to set the width. For our purposes, we're going to choose 800 pixels and height of 600 pixels. And all that's going to allow us to do is turn this into a rectangle where we can click and drag things and move them around. So if you just click in this area, you will see it update. So we can come back to that. If that output window doesn't automatically show up for us again, we can always find it under view and have it come back. I'm just trying to give some more real estate on the screen for us to work with. So let's start by using or dragging and dropping our first elements out of the toolbox. So if your toolbox is docked over here, select it. I'm going to keep mine docked for the rest of this one. Now you can drag and drop to here, or you can drag and drop to here, either way. But we're going to get two labels, and I'm going to drop it into the code. I'm going to come and drag another one here. So we've got label 1 and label 2, and I'm just going to leave them labeled like that. We're not going to touch that for right now. The text we are going to change. This first one we're going to make say Assign02. And then the second one we're going to make say IDE usage and intro. So this is like our title and our subtitle. I'm going to come down here and click, and you'll see that it just placed those in line. But you'll also notice that I cannot move them. They are stuck in that position. You cannot do anything yet. So let's come up here into our CSS, and let's add our IDs. Let's do pound label 1 and pound label 2. Case sensitivity is important. And we are going to add position absolute to both of them. Once we have done that, all we've done is done the ID label, which matches here, pound label 2, which matches this one. Again, case sensitivity is important. We've added position absolute. I'm going to click down here to refresh this screen. Now you'll see they're overlapping one another. Highlight one, get the crossbars, click and drag. Highlight the other, get the crossbars, click and drag. Now if you don't have these rulers, you can come up to View, Ruler and Grid, and show or hide the ruler. Likewise, what I like to have on is Snap to Grid to help align my elements on the screen if I'm clicking and dragging like I am. So I have Snap to Grid turned on as well. Now that we've got these two items on the screen, it's a good time to look at the Properties pane. If you don't have the Properties pane, you can go to View, Properties window. If the Properties window pops up like this for you, again, click and drag it. Come over here to the side, you'll see this item pop up, and you can choose where you want it. I want it in this bottom area. So there's my Properties window. You can resize each of these as you need to. If you want to change the text that's in there, we could come over here and we could change the text right here. You can also select it on the page, then go to the Properties window, then go to the text attribute, and you could change it here, hit enter, and you'll see that it changes it here and it changes it here. And we're not going to do that, so I'm going to get rid of that. I am going to expand the font. I'm going to change bold to true, so you see it bolded there. And then I'm also going to change the size to, let's start with 20 pixels. And let's go a little bit bigger. Let's do 30 pixels. That'll work. So you can play around with the properties in there as well. So you can do the CSS out here. You can do the CSS inline. You can use the properties window. You have options within the development environment. So I'm going to put this title about there. I'm going to click and drag this one. That's pretty close to where I want it. If you select it, you can use the arrow keys to nudge it back and forth to get it where you want it. I'm going to select it, come over to font and set bold to true. And then I'm going to select it, nudge it left once. Good enough. So now we've done some very basic stuff. You're learning about the IDE. You're learning about being able to open these different panes and dock them on the left or the right. You are going to use Solution Explorer a lot. You'll use properties. You'll use the toolbox. In future classes, we'll use the Server Explorer. And then for right now, let's go ahead and save it. You'll see we've got an asterisk here. Let's do a Control-Shift-B. And you'll see that the output window, for me anyway, did not automatically pop up. So I'm going to go to View, Output, and bring that up. And I'm going to do a Control-Shift-B again, just to watch that refresh. So it says build. Oh, it succeeded. It got rid of my, whoops. It got rid of my first one after I made the change. Let's then come over to index.aspx in the Solution Explorer. And we want to test what is there. So I'm going to right click, have this menu pop up, View in Browser. There's also a Browse With here, so you can choose what you want to browse with. I have mine set to Google Chrome. So I'm going to View in Browser. We'll have this pop up. And when it finishes loading, it's just loading it locally. And you can see the end product here. And it will actually be usable as we move forward. So next, we need to add some more items to our display here. We're going to drag and drop 4 more labels. And then those are going to have some text boxes associated with them. But for starters, let's do the labels. Last time we didn't change the label ID. This time we are going to change the label ID. So for our labels, we're going to use, or for each of our variables, we're going to use something that signifies what it is. So this is a label, so we're going to use LBL. And then when we get to the code behind, if we create a string, it will start with str. So it's a way to distinguish between the different elements and know just from looking at the name of it whether it's a label or something else. So let's do LBL. F name with a capital N is how I have it. LBL L name with a capital N. And then LBL city, all lowercase, and then LBL zip, all lowercase. And the text we're going to change. So what displays on the screen, we're going to change. This will be a first name. And again, these are just textual labels that you're going to see. next to each of the text boxes. There's our last name, and then city, and then zip, and then come down here and click, and you will see those 4 items there lined up. Again, you're not able to move them until we change the CSS. So I'm going to do a pound LBL F name. Again, case sensitivity is important. Pound LBLL name. Pound LBL city. And pound LBL zip. Come and click down here again, and you'll see that they all stack up. So now I'm going to move this a little bit. Going to select one, get my crosshairs, and you can see which one is highlighted here. So it says last name in it, but when we get to the text boxes, it won't necessarily say, but you can see that it's highlighted up above here. And I'm going to come down here and just place it around in there. We'll grab the next one. Get our crosshairs for our city. If you have trouble getting the crosshairs, make it a little bigger. Whoops, I did not mean to do that. And that one will actually go down farther. We've got a state to put in there yet. So we've got our first name, last name, city, and state lined up there. Pull this back down so that we are back up here in the code. Now we're going to drag 4 text boxes onto the screen. While I'm doing this, take note of the tag names. You'll notice that it is ASP colon. This is a server-side language, and this .aspx first executes at the server. So this ASP colon label runs at the server and produces something different. This ASP text box runs at the server and produces something different. So here we've got our 4 text boxes, so I'm going to make those F name with a capital N, L name, city, and zip. And I'm going to add a width to each one of these. And we're going to do 195 pixels. Copy that. And now if we come and click down here, you'll see there are our 4 text boxes. Again, we cannot move them until we come up into our CSS, and we'll do pound F name. Again, case sensitivity matters. Watch your case. L name. City. And zip. Now that we've added that, we can click down here. I'm going to move those text boxes into view right here so that when you'll see they're all stacked on top of each other. So I will click and drag the first one, and you can tell which one I have here. So I'm going to take that one over alongside first name. Go grab the next one, click and drag. You can see that that one is L name. Go grab the next one. You can see that one is zip up above in the code. So I'm going to line it up this way, then use my down arrow to get it down there. And then the last one must go here. So we've got our first name, last name, city, and zip lined up there. The next is a little bit more involved. So for state, we're going to do a drop-down list, but first it also needs a label. So let's come back to our code and let's place a label. This label we're going to call LBL state, and it will have the text of state. We'll go up to our CSS, pound LBL state, position, absolute. Now that we've done that, we'll come back down here. We can grab it, get our crosshairs, move it, about in there should suffice. And now we're going to do what in HTML would be a select option list, but in ASP.NET it is a drop-down list. So we're going to drag and drop a drop-down list onto the code. We're going to change the IDE to be state. Run at equals server stays the same. You'll notice all of these have run at equals server. Again, all of these are what we call controls. These are not, in HTML we call them tags, in XML we call them elements. In ASP.NET these are controls. These are server-side controls that produce HTML elements. So each one of them does run at the server. You'll notice that on this one, I have moved that closing ASP drop-down list down, and I'm going to go ahead and start typing ASP, and you'll notice there the option that I have there is ASP:list item, so I'll hit enter. This would be the option tag inside of an HTML select. So we will do, each one of these will have a value equals. So we'll go ahead and fill out this first one. And then a text equals. And then the closing ASP list item. Now I'm going to go ahead and leave a couple of spaces there above the closing drop-down list. But that's how it will look. We'll have a bunch of these that we're about to copy and paste in. The problem is we are copying them in as option tags, and we will have to do a find and replace to convert them into this list item. So let's go ahead and do a Control-Shift-B, build that. 1 succeeded, 0 failed. Let's come back to our description. We've got this HTML select, likewise down here. This drop-down list select. If you load that and click on it, we are going to copy the options. Do not copy the select. The select is there to show you how the entire thing would look in HTML. So do not copy the closing select. All we want are the open and close options. So do not copy the top select. Do not copy the bottom select. Hit Control-C to copy that and come back. And right here underneath that first list item, let's go ahead and paste. So there you can see my closing drop-down list. Here you can see the first option went in. We're going to line these up here. So I'm going to select all of the option tags. Make sure you don't select that drop-down list one. I'm going to do a Shift tab to take them over to the left, and then I'm going to do a tab, 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 tab. Come up here to the top, and we'll see that they align with our ASP list item. So now what we want to do is change this. Actually, this first one we already did here, so I'll get rid of it, the double dash one. We want to change this opening option value equals into this ASP:"list item value equals." You'll notice that the V in value is capitalized here. It's not here. Case sensitivity matters. So let's do an edit, find and replace, quick replace. We are going to find option space. You can see it highlighting on the left there. Value equals, like that. And we want to replace it with ASP:"list item with a capital L, capital I, space, value equals with a capital V. I'm going to put my cursor here after this list item. I'm going to click the arrow, which is Find Next. And you'll see that it selects that first one for me. I'm going to do this Replace Next, replace one item. And then I'm going to come over and I'm going to check and make sure I don't have any typos, make sure I have the capitalization correct, it looks correct. And then I'm going to do Replace All. The next one is one that you have to be more careful with. We're going to search for this right here. The problem is this occurs in many more places than just these option tags. So we are going to do a double quote greater than, and we want to replace that double quote greater than with a double quote space text equals double quote. So it's going to be a double quote space capital T in text equals double quote. I'm going to place my cursor right after this list item. I'm going to hit Find Next. It finds this first one. I'm going to hit Replace one of them. Do not hit Replace all. Do not hit Replace all. Replace the first one. Compare it to the one above. It looks like we have everything we need there. Capitalization is correct. Again, do not hit Replace all. You have to do these manually. So we will carefully go down through, doing them one at a time. Slow down. One more. And then we will scroll back down. Lastly, we need to change this closing option into this up here. So we are looking for a closing option tag. There you can see it highlighted on the left, and we are replacing it with a double quote greater than and then a closing ASP:"list item capital L, capital I. I'm going to place my cursor after this list item, hit Find Next, replace one of them, make sure that it did what I wanted it to do. Make sure your capitalization is correct, and then on that one we can go ahead and do Replace All. So now we've got an ASP drop-down list with a lot of items in it that we converted from our select option list. Let's do a Control-Shift-B to save and build. This is a compiled language, so each time you're building it, you are compiling an executable. Once we've done that, we still need to position it on the page. We'll see it's here in the upper left-hand corner. So ID of state, let's come up here to our CSS, pound state, position absolute. Then I'm going to come down here and drag this to where I would like for it to be. Control-Shift-B. 1 succeeded, 0 failed. I'm going to come over to the Solution Explorer and right-click on Index. Right-click on Index, View in Browser. And now you can see our drop-down list. Not only that, but right-click and view the page source and look at what ASP.NET generated. A select tag, name equals state, with options. So what we just converted from ASP.NET changed it back to. So those ASP drop-down list and ASP list items ran at the server and generated HTML for delivery to the client. Now that we've done that, we've got a button and a couple of other labels, and we'll be done with this ASPX. So let's add a button because we need to be able to submit our data. The ID we can leave as button 1, run at equals server is fine. Let's add the text of submit on there. You'll see it places it here in the upper left hand corner. Oops. Come up to our CSS, pound, button 1. Again, case sensitivity is important. And now we can switch back to this view, get our crosshairs, and place our submit button wherever we would like. A couple other labels. I'm going to grab a label here and drop it here. The ID of this one is going to be my name, and do not change anything else. Do not change the text. Leave the text saying label, okay? We are going to change this one from the code behind inside of the page load event. So you change the ID to my name, and that's it. Don't change the text. Let's go make it so we can position it where we want it on the screen. Make it a little bit bigger, get my crosshairs. I'm going to put this, I want you to put this in the upper right hand corner because we're going to put your name there. That way when it loads, I see your name. Right now it says label, and that's fine. That's what it's supposed to say. Lastly, one more label on the page. This one we are going to call results. You can leave the rest the same. The text can say label there. We'll come down here. Actually, let's make it so that we can position it. Pound results. Now this one, we're going to make it so that it covers all of the other controls on the screen. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger here so that I can grab it. I'm going to make it so that it covers all the other controls on the screen, like this. Move my split screen a little bit here. so that I can scroll up to my CSS. I'm going to add a background color of white. I'm going to click down here so you can see it covers everything else. So when that displays, all of the controls will be hidden. And then lastly, I'm going to set display to none. So that it's not visible. Control-Shift-B to build that. 1 succeeded, 0 failed. Come over to index.aspx, right-click, view in the browser. And now we have this layout. This should still say label right here. We will convert that into saying your name. We've got our drop-down list. We've got our submit button that does not do anything just yet. We are ready to start looking at that code behind page, that .cs. So we are going to come over here, and this is the one we want, .aspx.cs. Okay, make sure you're in the right one. It should look like this, .aspx.cs. The page load function is made for things that you want to happen when the page first loads in the browser. That's the easiest way to describe it. So anything you want to happen when the page first loads, the user's first visit, anything of that nature, this is where it goes. So in that page load event, we are going to look for my name. So you can see that it's suggesting, hey, I see something called my name. What do you want to do with it? I'll hit enter. And I'll say I want to set the text of it. So I'll hit enter on text equal to a string literal, end it with a semicolon. So C# statements end with a semicolon. My name matches, if we come back over here, this ID. So it says this ID, we are changing the text to be your name. So don't put my name, put your full name right there. Control-Shift-B. 1 succeeded, 0 failed. Right-click on the ASPX, not the CS. Right-click on the ASPX, view in browser. Your name should be there. Now it wraps. Why does it wrap? Let's close that, come back to the .aspx, and let's make this wider. Control-Shift-B. 1 succeeded. Right-click on the ASPX, view in browser. Now it does not wrap. Next, we need an event handler. So if we are looking at this design view here, when we click this button, we need something to happen. So we need an event handler for when this is clicked. So what we are going to do is, if we come and look at this .cs, this is all we have back here right now is a page load function. We've got a partial class that was generated for us. Page load function. Come back to the .aspx right here, and I want you to double click that button. So just mouse over and double click. That should take you to the code behind page, the .cs, and have automatically generated an event handler, button1_click. If we come back here and we go to the code for that button, you can already see it there at the top. You can see that it also added this, onClick equals button1_click. So all we did was double click on that button, and it created the event handler, and it put the onClick event into the code on the .aspx. So the rest of what we've got to do here is, there's not much to it. We're going to create some strings, we're going to concatenate those strings together, and we're going to add it to that results label and make that results label display. So let's just move through that, and we'll be done with this little exercise. So we're going to do a string, which is text, string, str first name equals fname. You can see it pop up for me there, dot text. And we are going to do a .toString. .toString is a handy little function that you can use on many things. So if you've got a number or something like that that you want to become text so that you can display it as text or concatenate it to a text string, something like that, .toString will convert that for you. So we'll put .toString on anything that we want to be a string or we want to ensure it is a string. We'll do the last name. There's lname.text.toString. We'll do the city. We'll do the zip. And then we'll do str state. We'll do state dot selected value dot toString. So that's the drop-down list there. So instead of .text, it was .selected value for the drop-down list. And now we're going to concatenate those together. So we're going to do results, which is that label we created. The text of that label, we're going to set that equal to first name concatenated with str first name concatenated with a break tag. So the concatenation operator is the plus sign in C#. Concatenation is joining two or more string literals together. We'll do this results.text, but this time it's a plus equals. If you continue to use equals there, it's going to overwrite, and the only thing you'll get is the last one. So it's got to be a plus equals there. Do the last name. Plus equals again. The city concatenated with we'll do the state concatenated with state. Each one ending with a semicolon. So now we've concatenated all that together into that results label. Again, results right here points to results right here, and we are changing the text of that. The thing is, we set that display to none, so it's not visible. So when we click this button, we want to change that style. So results.style.add, and it is name, it is attribute value pairs. So the attribute we want to change is display, and the value we want to give it is block. Control-Shift-B. You'll see it saved both our files here. Right-click on the ASPX Again, make sure it's the ASPX view in the browser. And when you click submit, that label should appear and cover everything like that. And that's the end of this index page. So the goal of that was to introduce you to the IDE, to show you where to find things, to show you how to begin using the IDE if you haven't used it before, or if it's been a while since you've used it, to show you that you can drag and drop things out of the toolbox and not have to necessarily type everything that goes into the .aspx, to expose you to the Solution Explorer and how you can use the Solution Explorer to add items. Right-click on the bold, add a new item, and also be able to right-click on an individual page and view in the browser so that you can test what you have done. Also the properties pane, so you can select an item that's on the screen and then change the properties that way as well. Again, saving is doing Control-Shift-B, which is a build, which compiles it and creates an executable. And it will show you errors if there are any at the bottom. And that gets us through this part of assignment 2.